Welcome to another episode of the Midweek Conversation, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. I'm Jerry Hendricks, and my co-host here is Teek Hamilton. Teek, man, this has been a week, huh?
It has been a week. It's a fun week.
Yeah, occasionally we have those weeks where we're going in different directions, and then we meet up long enough to sit here for a conversation.
Yep.
Not bad at all.
Nope, not bad at all. This week though started off really good with Reunion Sunday.
Yeah, it was a great day. I've been out the last couple of days, so I haven't been able to get a lot of feedback from others. But there were new people here. We had a good crowd, live crowd,
Right.
and a good online crowd.
Yeah, I say next year SJ gets to be like the star of the show intentionally.
Yeah, I think so. She was prepared.
She was, and man, she was getting into it. Afterwards, I carried the iPad around so they could see everybody, and she was all in waving at everybody. So it was really
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know if they prepped her for that or if she just natural.
That's her. She is that way.
Either way, it did add a lot to it. It was fun, with the additional screens in there, and then, that kind of gets the wheels turning on other possibilities or other things that we might be able to do. But it's definitely a good day, as it is always.
Yes.
And as I was kind of getting into my routine this morning, I realized that I had not yet pulled out my October calendar, which I needed to post some things on there for Thursday.
Right.
And then I come back and I'm posting attendance, and I thought, it's almost time for Reunion Sunday. We normally do it in October.
Right.
And so that's a little different for us doing it then, or doing it when we did.
Right, because we normally base it on the homecoming game, and that was in September this year.
Right. So everything was a little earlier, but it worked out fine.
Yeah.
So not bad at all. And then the choir piece I thought was really good.
Yeah.
We started with that. It was another video piece that Jenny put together. Jenny and Daryl, I think both of them work on that. But shout out once again to our technical team and folks upstairs. They worked through that and helped set us up to win on Sunday.
I think people who write music these days like putting in false endings just so they can get the audience to clap at a time when it's still going, which doesn't help out when it's digital. But in real life, you're like clapping, and then you're like, why is the choir just standing there still? Oh, they're still going.
It was harder to interpret with them just being on video.
Right, because they didn't know anybody was clapping.
Yeah, so far I've only missed the cue once in 5 years since I've been here. And then I just kind of stood on stage till the song was over. But it happens.
It does. It's funny. I think they do it intentionally, though. I think that's their way of having fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but it was still a good day for us, and then kind of hit this transitional period into the fall, and it's actually been feeling a little bit like fall.
It has. That cold front came in and it got into the 70s.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was
cold.
The morning run was a little chilly. I think I wore a sweat top for the first time.
Stacy's wearing, sweat tops when it's 90 degrees outside. But
of course she is.
We went on a walk last night, and she had to get prepared by getting her clothes, like longer sleeves and pants on. And so we take off walking, and we got over by the creek, and it was really cold. We hit a cold spot, and I was kind of wishing I had to put on longer pants, not shorts.
Right. Well, definitely a fun time of the year. It's hard to tell. It's starting to feel a little more normal. I mean, we've still got this kind of a cloud over us of the uncertainty.
Yeah, Stacey and I were talking about it. It's still, nothing has really changed over the last 6 months, but it feels more normal. But our situation hasn't really changed.
Right.
I mean, we are meeting again. We're paying more attention to it, and hopefully the flu season won't be as bad with social distancing and masks and stuff like that. So that'll be good.
Yeah. Well, Sunday we covered another chapter in the book of Philippians, Philippians chapter 2, and it's interesting as I was thinking about this in my reading this week, is that each one you kind of go, oh, no, I think this is my favorite. And then until you read the next one, and it really does build. I think, I've said at the outset of the series that there's a lot of power verses in Philippians, verses that when you read them, you recall them from your childhood, or they're highlighted in your Bibles. Probably, if if there were a power chapter, I'm going to say it's chapter 3.
Okay.
That's the striving passage where he strives forward. And there's just so much content there that are words that we hear, and I think it's words that really give us a vocabulary for faith in a lot of ways.
You know what I like about doing this study in Philippians the way we're doing it? You can't take stuff out of context.
Yes.
So often there are short passages. I can do with all things through Christ who strengthens me. We take that out of context and we use it, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Make a cloud appear right now, you know? And,
Right.
But really, he's talking about his circumstances, and we get to that, chapter 4.
Right.
But you can't take those things out of context. So then you get to this part last week where it talks about how Christ took the form of a servant coming down to us. And you can't just look at that as God and Christ only. You have to look at it in relationship to us and our lives and how we live our lives, because you can't just take it out of context.
Right.
So,
I guess the heart of the story that's at the heart of this chapter, chapter 3, is really just thinking through Paul's experience and how he came to Christ and how dramatically his life was changed because of that experience. And yet when he has the opportunity to reflect on that and to talk about that to other believers, he sums it up well, and he also gives us a language for understanding our own faith as far as leaving a past and moving into something that's new, that's shaped around Christ-likeness.
Right. And is this, I haven't read it yet, this is the passage where he says, I have a past that actually was top of tops.
Right.
Like, I had a good past, in my opinion, but it's better following Christ.
Right. He goes into the transition that some of the commentators I've noticed, it's similar among them, is they talk about that's when everything changed. His Damascus experience, he was all these other things, really at the very top of his class. However you want to phrase his resume about who he was and what he had been doing and how well respected he was.
Right.
He was the go-to guy in Jewish faith, and but when he met God, everything changed.
Right.
But all of that stuff was still who he was.
Right.
That was still had shaped his past and. Or shaped his character, and so when he's communicating, I believe that helps him in a lot of ways to know how to communicate well to those who still are steeped in those backgrounds.
So he was pretty much that typical ladder of success person that you talked about Sunday. Like, that was him. He was the top of the cream of the crop, but it was lived out in a way that was not Christ-like and wasn't following the way at the time.
Right.
So that'll be good.
And one of the commentators I read had sometimes they'll have these sort of insets into their commentary towards certain things, and I thought it was interesting. It said a note to the high achiever, because it, there's still those type A's around. There's those people who are striving, and a lot of that has to do, I think, with a person's their place in life. Young adults. And that ladder that you mentioned, trying to work your way up that. But I just thought that was interesting that someone put that in that context into this story of Paul's.
Right. And achieving things isn't bad. It's the context of it. It's who you follow and how you live that out.
Right. So I think one of the questions that I want to deal with this week is, which is easier, to have this impeccable resume and try to make a difference in the world, or to just have zero, have nothing. And Paul contrasts those things for us real well. But at the same time, it's real hard for us to envision starting from zero.
Right. And we think, people get into the trap, probably I've gotten trapped sometime, the more I have, the more I'm able to do for Christ.
Sure.
But in all reality, you can have the bottom job and still be an influencer in people's lives.
Right. Well, the picture or the image that was kind of creating in my head was if a person has the opportunity to wipe the slate clean and start over, then what does what begins to go back into a person's life.
Right.
And I think that's really what he's trying to get at in his own way of describing that for us about, looking back on it, forgetting his past, but striving forward to a future. That there is something in that future, and some of those things in the future are going to look a lot like this resume that he had. Mm-hmm. But he's at a place, and he calls out or spotlights that place we come to in faith life where we want to consciously choose what goes into that resume or what goes into our faith experience that actually does help us serve others.
Which, most people think it's hard to do, to be able to wipe that slate clean and then choose, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, no.
I mean, he was able to do it.
Well, I think, most often, I think the way that we see it played out in life is a person gets knocked down. They get maybe a potentially terminal disease, or there's a tragedy in their family, or something happens that causes for them this great reversal.
Right.
And then they have a new view, a new outlook. But so that's one way I think that happens. But the other way is a much more challenging way, where we literally take all the accolades, or however you want to look at that, all the possessions or whatever that are just a part of our life that we don't realize that we're attached to, but you consider it rubbish, as Paul would say, or waste, and start building a new life. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to use that word.
The rubbish word?
Yeah.
No,
but there's several for it.
The way that he describes it is very graphic, and it is a great illustration for our lives that we need to think about what we're putting in there and what we're celebrating versus what we should be celebrating.
Yeah, and so it's really it's two paths, I think. As the one way we can look at that, and we have to choose which path we take, and then how we start creating life in that path.
Yeah.
And I do think that when you look, I said this Sunday that it's interesting how when a person serves that they find joy.
Right.
And it always seemed to me that the more difficult the service, the greater joy.
Right.
And so I know in putting together youth ministry mission trips and things like that, my approach was, let's get dirty.
Right.
Let's we took shingles off houses, we painted, we do things like that where it's a great equalizer. So
taking shingles off houses, did you have to carry those up the ladder too? That seemed to always fall on the adults.
No, I was on the ground taking pictures of kids.
Oh man.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we had two girls that was their project. There were several projects. We were in Birmingham, and there were two girls that wanted to do roofing.
Right. And
they don't let you do that anymore on these kinds of mission trips because of liability. Mm-hmm. But they were having to take it off, and so they were on their bottoms scooting up and down this roof that already had that first layer on there.
Right.
So they're just covered in black by the end of the day from.
And it's hot.
And it's hot, and it was hot in Birmingham in July. So, it just reminded me of things that I had heard in terms of service. That it seems like when you do pour out more, that there's just greater joy in that, and those girls had a blast.
Yeah, I think that, and then you see the lives that are impacted by that service.
Right.
And it gives you that feeling of knowing even more how God used you to affect somebody's life.
An interesting story I just thought of was my associate was a teacher. That she was an associate for the summer, and it was my first time to have someone actually direct the intern. So I didn't have that responsibility directly. But she was older and had a master's in education, very sharp person, but she had skills that no one knew of. So the project that she drew, they put in a bathroom in a house.
Wow.
And she was the lead.
Nice.
But apparently she had some remodeling skills that no one knew about. But the house that she worked on didn't even have indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
And this was in the 1990s.
So it was in the 1900s, but the late 1900s.
Yes,
Right.
when most everyone in the world has,
Yeah.
or at least in America, has indoor plumbing. But anyways, good passages and good thoughts that definitely, I think as we read them, they see how we use these words to kind of frame our faith. I think as we get through chapter 3, we'll start to see that more and more, that Paul helps us in that way to discover those things. So Sunday's going to be fun. It'll be another good day together, and we'll have a good time of worship together as we study joy always in Philippians chapter 3. I almost said free. I don't know what happened there. But anyways, we look forward to being in your home or being with you in worship, whether at home or live here with us, come this Sunday at 10:30.
See you then.